In a huge surprise, the next banner consists of the three Muspell generals, Helbindi, Laevatein, and Laegjarn. Okay, so it wasn't much of a surprise since these three were in the last data mine, but it's still cool that we got them now that Book 2 has come to an end. In this video, we'll take a look at their stats, any new weapons and skills they may come with, and then I'll talk about a few builds for each of them. This banner should be out tonight if you're watching this video the day it's been uploaded, so I hope you have some orbs. Let's get started. Up first is Helbindi, who may look all tough and scary, but we know he's a nice guy who got caught up in a bad situation. Helbindi is an infantry axe unit with 44 HP, 35 attack, 18 speed, 35 defense, and 31 resistance. If you're familiar with Hawkeye, then Helbindi is a very similar unit, but more min-maxed. Helbindi sacrifices even more speed to pump up his other stats, and with 35 defense and 31 resistance, he is very much looking to run defensive builds. Before we talk about his weapon, I want to touch on Helbindi's other skills. He comes with Vengeance, which can do good damage, but should probably just be replaced. Guard is a good defensive skill to have, and it means enemies can't charge their special when they hit Helbindi twice. With Infantry Pulse, Helbindi can provide special cooldown reduction to his team, and it's a nice skill to have combined with his supportive weapon. Helbindi's axe is Byleistr, and it's got a whole ton of skills on it. At the start of odd number turns, Byleistr grants +4 to all stats to Helbindi and any adjacent allies for 1 turn. This should sound familiar because it's just what the odd wave skills are, and Byleistr basically has odd attack, speed, defense, and resistance wave too. Being able to buff himself with +4 to all stats is pretty powerful, but it only does happen every other turn, so mistiming when Helbindi gets into a fight means Byleistr is just a silver axe. That being said, Helbindi can provide +4 to all stats for his teammates too, and with Infantry Pulse in his C skill, he actually grants a lot of team support. Overall, if you like the odd and even type skills, then Helbindi will be a great addition to your team. Oh boy, so we have to talk about his new A skill called Green Dual Infantry. I'll be referring to it as dual type skills since there are more variants. So first off, this skill is only inheritable by, you guessed it, green infantry units. Its first grants HP +5, which is okay, but its second effect is what will cause a lot more controversy. Basically what the dual type skills do is that they give a unit 170 BST when calculating arena score. If you're not aware, arena scoring takes into account a unit's base stat total, or BST, and 170 is basically the highest BST tier, and it includes 2nd gen army units like Zelgius or Melgrima. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but essentially a unit with 170 BST will score higher than a unit with 150 BST. The dual type skills essentially allow units with low BST to get a score boost in exchange for their A slot, which is pretty valuable on most units. I do want to point out that it's only usable by 5-star units, meaning you can't use 1, 2, 3, or 4-star units, and by extension you can't boost a 4-star +10 merged unit's BST score. Now, this BST increase is just for the purpose of arena scoring, and a unit with 150 BST will not suddenly get 20 extra stat points somewhere. Ideally, the best users of this skill do not need their A skill to do well, and one of the best type of units who fill that category are dancers. You tend to see less dancers in higher tier arena because their BSTs are naturally lower to account for how powerful dance and sing can be. Well, now you can give a green infantry dancer this skill and they can gain a score boost. Performing Arts Azura is probably the best at green infantry dancer, and her banner just came back. So yeah, it's like they are telling all the whales to go get more Azuras. Before any complaints come in, BST is only one part of how well a unit scores in arena. I believe merges are more important, and as such the dual type skills are only going to be a meta changer for units that have a good amount of merges and need the BST boost. At the moment, I don't think the dual skills will impact most players since not everyone is in tier 20 or 21 arena. As someone who doesn't solely focus on arena scoring, I don't really have that strong of an opinion on if these skills will be a problem in the future. Of course, I'd love to hear what you guys think about these skills in the comments. We've discussed a lot, so let's move on. For builds, let's just start off by filling in the gaps for Helbindi's base kit. Give him bonfire and close defense, and you have a tanky axe unit who gets even tankier on odd number turns. With Byleistr and Infantry Pulse, Helbindi brings good supportive abilities, so I'm sure a lot of players will keep both of these on most builds. If you want, Quick Repose is a good replacement, and it gives Helbindi more one-round killing power. It can go in the B slot or the Sacred Seal slot, depending on if you want to keep guard. Now if you don't care about arena scoring, then give Helbindi a different A skill like Fury 3. With Fury 3 and his great 31 res stat, Helbindi can run ploy type skills instead of infantry pulse to provide a different kind of team support. With defense ploy, you can boost Helbindi's own damage, and giving him Vantage helps offset Fury's recoil damage. As a rule of thumb, anytime you can buff your own team and debuff the enemy team, it widens the stat gap even further, and it's a great overall strategy if you have the right units. Since Helbindi has a balanced defense and res stat, he could be a good candidate for brazen defense and resistance. If he can survive an engagement and get below 80% HP, he gets another +7 defense and res, which can stack with close defense and even his own Byleistr field buffs. To make Helbindi scarier, give him Wrath, and while he stays alive on low HP, he can also get +10 extra damage on special procs, and even get special cooldown reduction every turn. Helbindi's speed is basically unsalvageable, but if he's taking no damage, then he'll be okay getting hit twice. Next up we have Laevatein, who is an infantry sword user. She has 39 HP, 37 attack, 31 speed, 34 defense, and 22 resistance. Her 37 base attack is massive, and her 31 speed is definitely usable, although may not be needed. With 34 defense, she is also pretty bulky, and you won't be able to take her down so easily. She comes with Swap, Fury 3, and Attack and Defense Link, all of which make her even tankier and give her more damage. Laevatein has a good stat spread plus some great skills, but it's her weapon that makes her really scary. We've seen Laevatein from most of Book 2, so you probably know she is named after her own sword. The sword Laevatein grants +3 attack, so that means she is already starting off with 56 attack before other skills are involved. Its other effect is the same as a Blade Tome, adding the total bonuses on Laevatein to her attack stat. This is the first physical damaging weapon with this effect, and we've seen how deadly Blade Tomes can be. You need to give Laevatein field buffs and she will gain huge amounts of damage. If you give her +6 stat buffs to each stat, that will equal 30 extra points of attack, and she can reach 86 attack. It's pretty insane, and if you like Blade Tomes, then Laevatein and her sword will be a good pickup. Now Laevatein also comes with Odd Speed Wave, which I believe is the last Odd Wave skill. It grants +6 speed to herself and adjacent allies every odd number turn, and that's great because she can use that to buff up her own damage. As for builds, Laevatein is pretty much fully kitted out with Fury 3 granting +3 to all stats, cause why not, and Attack and Defense Link plus Odd Speed Wave, giving her 2 ways to self-buff 3 different stats. Just give Laevatein Glimmer and she'll be ready to dish out huge damage numbers as long as she stays fully buffed. For Sacred Seals, speed +3 is simple, and it's a nice boost to put her in the 40s after Odd Speed Wave is active. If you're able to give Laevatein her attack and defense buffs from somewhere else, then Desperation will be a good substitute, and it complements Fury like always. She can even run Heavy Blade and is basically guaranteed to proc even with just a few buffs, since her sword adds extra attack and is not direct damage. With specials being so important in this game, I find myself liking Special Spyro more and more. With Glimmer being a 2-turn cooldown, you can run Special Spyro to fully charge it for the next round of combat as long as you can activate it one time. You can go for a full one-shot build, proccing Glimmer while also making sure Laevatein's sword is taking field buffs to get the extra attack. This probably works better if you run Infantry Pulse or Quicken Pulse to get Glimmer immediately ready, since that allows Special Spyro to be activated immediately. As an alternative, Laevatein can also try to run the AoE specials with Heavy Blade to mimic units like Ares who can have AoE specials ready every turn thanks to Special Spyro. With Blazing Wind being a 4-turn special, Heavy Blade can knock it down to 2 after Laevatein attacks, and it can be brought down to 0 thanks to Special Spyro. This probably puts out even more damage than Glimmer, but you do have to be wary of Vantage, which can counter this set. If there is no Vantage enemies, then once you get Blazing Wind or any AoE of your choice going, the Special Spyro keeps the rotation onward. Now I know Laevatein has incredible offensive potential, but I think she can also make use of defensive setups too. 34 base defense is great, and since her sword can grant so much bonus attack, Laevatein is free to spec into defensive skills like Steady Breath or Enclosed Defense. Attack and Defense Link is a great B skill for defensive builds, and plus it only adds more damage for Laevatein. With Steady Breath, Laevatein can proc Glimmer every time she takes a hit, and with all that extra defense, she can shrug off attacks and output insane damage too. She won't get a lot of doubles with a build like this, but with a Blade Tome sword, she can and will one-shot squishy targets if you give her the necessary field buffs. Last is Laegjarn, who is Laevatein's sister. I think most players liked her in the story, and she seemed like a decent person before, spoilers, she meets her fiery end. Laegjarn is a flying sword user with 41 HP, 32 attack, 36 speed, 36 defense, and 17 resistance. The two sisters are pretty similar, but Laegjarn has less attack in exchange for more base speed. Her 36 defense is also really good, and she is clearly the best defensive red flyer, beating New Year's Camilla by 5 points of defense. Laegjarn is very much a physical damage brawler, and she can take hits pretty well. Just keep her away from magic, particularly fire magic from some dragon god. Before we discuss her sword, keep in mind Laegjarn comes with Bonfire, Chill Attack, and Distant Guard, all of which are pretty good skills. Laegjarn's sword is new, and first off, it grants +3 speed, which brings her base speed up to a great 39. Its second effect is that it takes the total bonuses on the enemy and adds 50% of that to her attack, speed, defense, and resistance during combat. So this effect is kind of like a blade tome effect, but pulls the buffs from the enemy, and it adds it to all of Laegjarn's stats. For example, if the enemy has a +4 attack and +4 speed buff, that is a total of +8. Niu takes 50% of that, which is +4, and grants Laegjarn +4 to all stats during combat. It's important to note that buffs and debuffs are separate, meaning Niu can take buffs from a unit who has a debuff on the same stat. In this example, when an enemy with +4 attack, but hit by Laegjarn's chill attack, it will still grant +2 to all stats for Laegjarn, even though the enemy has -3 attack overall. Niu is an odd weapon, but think of it as a way for Laegjarn to keep up with a buffed up enemy. She isn't stealing the buffs completely, and the enemy will still be buffed up despite Laegjarn getting a smaller boost. Niu requires the enemy to get stronger, but since it grants in-combat stats, it works best if you give Laegjarn her own field buffs to stack on top of Niu's combat buffs. To go even further, you can hit the enemy with debuffs to lower their stats, but still take 50% of their total bonuses. In my opinion, Niu has incredibly high potential, but its drawback is that it's useless if the enemy has no field buffs. Just imagine though, if an enemy has +6 to all stats, that would be 24 total bonuses, and Niu would then give Laegjarn +12 to all her stats. That's just insane, honestly. If you have to face Laegjarn and your main strategy is to use field buffs, then you may end up in a really bad situation. As for Laegjarn's other new skill, she comes with a dual type skill. This one is for red flying units. It's the exact same as the one we discussed for Helbindi, and it could be used on red flying mages like Halloween Noe or a dancer like Flying Olivia. With more dual skills sure to come in the future, it's just a matter of time before all the color and movement types get covered. Again, Laegjarn comes with a usable base kit, and I would just add reposition and close defense to make her a tankier unit. As we discussed, chill attack synergizes with Niu to cut down the enemy's attack even if it gets buffed up. Laegjarn would love additional field buffs, and she is best when fully buffed and fighting another enemy who also has buffs. Distant Guard is a fine C skill, but you can substitute it with something else if you want. Since Laegjarn with Niu will have 39 base speed, she can definitely run more offensive builds. Desperation is there for better engagements after she gets hurt, and any A skill that boosts her speed will be a great complement. So Sparrow, Darting Blow, Steady Blow, or even Fury 3 are good options. Niu's ability to add extra attack and speed can also help Laegjarn a ton if the enemy doesn't have defense buffs. Niu is very much a weapon with a lot of hidden power, so you will need to think about who Laegjarn fights to get the most out of it. Similar to the first defensive build, this one takes things to the extreme. Now you could use Niu, but I think a Safeguard Sword would complement this build better since it grants a consistently strong defense boost. As the physically bulkiest red flyer, Laegjarn is the go-to for defensive builds. She can't run Steady Breath unfortunately, but close defense is a fine replacement, and double close defense might be too much overkill. Add Bonfire and Quick Riposte for damage, and you have yourself a flying fortress. If you want, move Quick Riposte to the Sacred Seal slot to free up the B skill for something like Guard, Renewal, or her natural chill attack. Aether might also be a better special to stay in high HP range, and while it's not listed here, you can use Iod's Shield somewhere to protect Laegjarn from arrows. If you feel Niu isn't doing enough or isn't consistent enough, then definitely feel free to switch to a different weapon with a different build like this one. I think Niu is good, but it may not perform as well as I think it might. I think it's honestly a weapon you just have to play around with. In summary, Helbindi is a min-maxed axe user with terrible speed but amazing stats everywhere else. Byleistr and Infantry Pulse also provide great team support from his base kit. Laevatein's sword is the first blade tone weapon that deals physical damage, and paired with her incredibly high base attack, she will dish out a ton of damage. As for Laegjarn, she can fill the role of a tanky red flyer with great speed, and Niu has huge potential by stealing enemy buffs for herself. This banner also introduces dual arena skills, which may or may not change the high tier arena meta. If you aren't largely focused on arena, then this probably won't affect you at all, but it's possible that as we get more of these skills, you may see them trickle into tier 19 or 18. That wraps up everything for this banner, and I hope you enjoyed this breakdown. Remember, this banner comes out tonight if you're watching this video the day it's been uploaded, and tomorrow I plan to upload my video about Garen, our newest Grand Hero battle unit. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.